quick tutorial on how to use Cinemachine Impulse with animation events on NPC. So start off by making a 3D cube, reset its transform, and increase the size on X and Z value to quite a lot because we're going to make a giant character later. Actually, I'm going to have to set this to ground layer for my character control to work. Go to navigation. If you don't have navigation, go to window, AI, and then press navigation to get this. Press object. Now with the cube marked, we press navigation static, and then we bake. Everything is blue, that's great. Then let's get to our character. So I have a model that I made in Blender, and I made a run animation and an idle animation for it. And this would be equal to your NPC or whatever you want, such as an enemy. So I'm just going to add a nav mesh agent. I'm going to add an animator. And I'm going to add a impulse source. And in the impulse source here we can press the cog, we can get a 6D shape and a shake. Sorry. Okay, so this is a start. Let's make a new script. I already have one, but I'm going to delete that and we're going to redo this whole thing. Okay, so create new C# script. Name it whatever you want. I'm going to name it NPC agent. And let's open that. Delete the old stuff. Let's get a nav mesh agent. Animator anim. And Cinemachine Impulse source impulse. Oops, there we go. And we have to get some namespaces, so we have to use using unityengine.ai and using Cinemachine. Okay, so now we can use the nav mesh agent and we can use the Cinemachine code. Since we have everything added to our agent, we can just get the transform for our references. We can start with agent equals transform dot get component nav mesh agent. Okay, and anim equals transform dot get component animator, and impulse equals transform dot get component impulse source. Oops. And in the update function, we will just copy Bracky's tutorial on nav mesh agents for this. So if input.get key down key code.t. So if you press the T key on your keyboard, we are going to make we are going to make an array and send out a raycast and check if there's a nav mesh, and if there is, we are going to set a nav mesh agent's destination there. But first we need a camera. So let's make a serialize field private camera cam. So now we have to reference a camera. We can probably use camera.main, but we're going to do this just because in this case. So we'll check ray equals cam dot screen screen point to ray. Yeah, and then we have to get input dot mouse position. That should be it. Unless I fucked something up. Let's also get a raycast hit. Raycast hit. And for your NPC or enemy or whatever, you're probably going to use a state machine or some other kind of function to move them, because you probably don't want the player to be able to move the enemies this way. So if you need anything like that, I suggest you go look up the Kiwi Coder on YouTube. He makes great tutorials on animation rigging and on state machines. Definitely suggest you subscribe to him, because he makes really good quality videos on and Unity tutorials. Okay, so if Q6 dot X dot raycast hit. Okay, so if it's something, then we'll set agent dot set destination. Okay, so we press the T key, it checks for a mouse input position on screen, and it draws a ray to that point. And if it hits something, then on the nav mesh, the agent will get those coordinates and move to that position. So let's try this out, see how many errors we get. Nothing so far. Okay, so go to our NPC and add our NPC agent script. And here we have cam. Get your main camera and drag it there. And let's try this out, see if it works so far. Yes, it moves. No animations, but it moves. Let's get some animations then. So let's start with creating an animation controller. I already have one, but I'm going to delete that and I'm going to do another one. So let's get an animated controller, NPC anim. Let's open that, and here let's start with making a create state and then from new blend tree. If you already have animations, you can just make this blend tree and you can click and set layer default layer if that's suitable for whatever you're making. In the blend tree, we're going to set 2 motions because I only have idle and running, and I'm going to pick those animations. Here they are, idle and running. Okay, and we have a parameter here because when we go from 0 to 1, it will blend between animations. So if you look here, now it's playing the idle animation, it just bends his knees a bit. But the more this increases, the more he starts walking and running. It's only 2 animations, but it blends between them. So if you have several animations, you can add more clips here. But we'll start with that. I'm going to rename this blend to speed, and it should automatically fix that up here too. But if it doesn't, just write the same thing here. So let's go to the anim NPC agent, and in update, let's set anim.set float speed, and then we take agent.velocity.magnitude. Okay, let's see if that works. So what we should see now is that there are animations to the walking of the Namesh agent. It doesn't move. Why? Because of course I forgot to add the animator controller here. So take your NPC animator controller that you made and you drag that to the animator here. Now let's try that again. Now it animates, great. If your character doesn't animate at any point, make sure to check that you have an animation controller and it's the correct animation controller. Otherwise, you won't really have any animations. So, okay, this is a good start. Let's make a function outside of update. Here we make a public void shake. This is how we use Cinemachine Impulse. We'll do impulse.generate impulse. Okay, and now in our editor here again, we'll check our run animation. We'll press edit and we'll go down to events. We'll move this bar here to the point where we see impact, well, contact with the ground, so to speak. Then we'll press add event, and I'll go to the next one because there's 2 steps. Second step about here. Last time I made this, the audio fucked up, so I had to redo everything again. Okay, so yeah, 2 animation events. Here they are. We're going to set on both of them, we're going to write shake. Okay, and lock this window and go over to our scripts. And you take the NPC agent script and you drag it into the object slot. And then we hit apply. So when we reach these keyframes, it will activate this shake function. So let's try that. I don't think we have a impulse listener on our virtual camera. So go to your virtual camera. If you don't have a virtual camera, make sure that you do. Instead of using your main camera for, say, moving your character, use your virtual camera. Or, if you don't have a virtual camera, just go into... I remember there being a Cinemachine window, but I guess I don't have that currently. So anyway, you can create a virtual camera somewhere. Cinemachine virtual camera. Okay. So if on your virtual camera, just choose extensions and then Cinemachine Impulse listener. I used to have one here, so I'm going to revert that. Great. Now we should be able to have shakes when the character walks towards us, and it does shake. Okay, we can increase that a bit in the Cinemachine Impulse source here, gain to 10 just to exaggerate. Yeah. Okay, so you get the point. Now our NPC walks and the world shakes when it does, or the camera shakes. So we have some interesting settings here. We have gain, we have impact radius, so within this radius you will feel the full force of the impact. So we can set that to something like 5, because if we're outside this range, the impulse will be weaker, and the further away we are from the character, the lesser it will be. This is the maximum reach of the impact. We can set that to 60. Let's set gain to 5 and test this out. So if we are 5 or less units from the NPC, we'll feel the full impact. If we're further than 60, there will be no impulse source impact, so to speak. Okay, so we can set... Yeah, and as it moves away, the impulse gets weaker and weaker. And we can set it right at our feet. We can still see the shaking, but yeah. That's fucking terrifying. So let's move to the next point. Let's make a serialized field private float and call it impulse gain. Yeah. We'll set this in the inspector, because instead of setting our gain here, we can set it and change it dynamically from script. So we're going to do that instead. So what we'll do is set impulse gain, and we'll take times agent and dot velocity dot magnitude. This means that the impulse will scale with the velocity of the agent, just like the animations do. So if it is early in the blend tree, maybe it takes a while for your NPC to speed up to full speed. It won't be the full impulse at that point. So let's try this out. So here as our NPC, we have to go to our NPC agent script. And since our impulse gain is 0, there won't be any impulse at all if we start now. So let's set it at 4. And we'll see if, right now we still have the same speed on our Cinemachine agent, but if it takes a while to gain that speed through acceleration, then there would be a bigger difference. At this point, great, we have an NPC with scaling impulse source. Holy fuck, that's a lot. Let's decrease that a bit. We can actually, because there was a request on how to do this, and I think what the person meant was to make something like a Shadow of the Colossus or Attack on Titan like character, or maybe just a troll or ogre or something. So let's make this character really big. Great, we have a giant. Let's go into the animation controller and let's set our, here on the blend tree, let's set the speed of our animation to about 0.1, and in our Cinemachine agent on our NPC we set the speed to 25 or something like that because of the size. Let's set the angular speed to like 340 or something. Just keep it quite high, otherwise it will take a while for it to turn, and that's no fun. I think this should be enough for now. Yeah, okay, let's try this out. And since I haven't been that accurate with keyframes, there might be a bit of a difference between the foot hitting the ground and there being an impulse generated. But if you're going to do this with the keyframes, then you will have a lot more accurate pulses. And it takes a while for a pulse to reach a distance. Because the pulse is considered much like sound, it's vibrations, so to speak. So it travels at a certain speed. It's not instant, but you could make the impulse a lot faster. Let's check this. Quite weak right now. I think that's because we have we have quite low range here. Set that to 500 dissipation distance. How far the maximum reach of this impulse is. Let's try that again. And let's go. Yeah, something like that. There, oops. Okay, so that's quite good. As I said, you can go to your NPC and you can set the Cinemachine Impulse source. Yeah, here is the speed. Speed in meters per second. I'm pretty sure this is that usually I forgot, but I'm pretty sure this is the sound of speed in meters per second. Otherwise, I look stupid, but I can live with that. But yeah, this is how you make, say, an NPC with animation events, which cause an impulse to be generated. But there was also a request on how to do this with an impulse source at each foot of the character. So we'll go through the armature to the bones of the feet here. Oops. And let's add a impulse source. 60 shake. Foot R impulse source. 60 shake. And let's go back to our script, and instead of getting a reference to our impulse here, we are going to do a serialize private. Let's just copy it. You can use public as well, but generally you should try to use private instead of public, unless you're calling the or using whatever that is public from somewhere. In this case, we don't need it to be public, but if you want to make it public or think it's easier, you can. So impulse L and impulse R, and here we'll do shake L, and we'll just copy paste. Oops. We'll copy paste this, paste, and we'll make it shake R, and here on impulse shake R, shake L. Okay, so now let's go back to the editor. Now let's click our NPC again. We have these two. So drag the left foot to the left impulse and the right foot to the right impulse. And we have to go back to animation here, because right now we're just calling shake in the events. So you have to rename these. So shake, which was this. Right foot. So shake R. Here's L then. So shake L and apply. And now we have to set well, the gain is set here, but we have to set impact radius and such from here. I'll just keep them at default for now. The thing is that at this size, I don't think it makes much of a difference if you have an impulse source at each foot or one just at the character in general, as we did at first. I don't see any gain to, I don't see any benefit to using one at each foot. But if you have a much larger character or much wider, maybe something spider-like or like a mech or something like that, then I could see using something like an impulse source on each foot. But for a humanoid character, I don't see the benefit of it. But anyway, we've at least done it. If you're wondering what we see flimmering around, it's because I haven't attached the character FPS model to the camera yet, so the shakes are independent of the body, meaning that we'll get this strange reaction. This is a large impulse, so with the FOV and with no other objects here, it's not really that apparent how powerful something like this impulse is, but it is a very great impulse, so it shakes a lot. Yeah, and I think that concludes the tutorial on how to well, make this, I guess. I hope it was helpful.